For this episode of Children of Heroes, we stayed in central London, where we met with Mr. Roman Brázdil, son of Flight Sergeant Jaroslav Brázdil.
Thank you for participating in our project Children of Heroes. Your father served in the Royal Air Force during the Second World War. He escaped from Czechoslovakia because the Gestapo were after him.
Yes.
What was the reason for that?
Well, he was disseminating some leaflets which was viewed as anti-Nazi propaganda. Then he got notified by his colleagues that the Gestapo were onto him, but he had to leave because it would be a death sentence for him and his entire family. So he left two letters for his mother, one stating that he was going for work to Germany, that his mother should present to the Gestapo when they came for him. The other letter, he actually said what his real aims were, that he was escaping, and the second letter should be burnt and destroyed, so no evidence of him escaping was to be found. It was to save his family from the concentration camp. He escaped via Slovakia on foot, Hungary, and he made his way to Split. He was lucky to board the last ship heading to France. He entered the Foreign Legion in France, aiming to fight the Nazis, but France had capitulated. He had to withdraw with the French forces to Dunkirk, where he boarded a boat headed to the UK. When they came to England in Chomlin Park, where they all gathered, the Czechs, they were informed that the 311 Bomber Squadron was recruiting. He just saw it, better pay, better conditions, so he decided to join.
He served as a gunner.
My father served as a wireless operator. He went via New York all the way down to Bahamas and trained on the Mitchells. And I've got some old photographs in a scrapbook, and my father documented it all. This was him in the Foreign Legion. And this was, again, when he was training to be the wireless operator and air gunner in Bahamas. He then became a qualified wireless operator, a gunner. The position that he took within the plane as a gunner was in the front bottom turret. And I asked him, why were you in that particular turret? And he said, well, because I was the youngest and the smallest. So they were all older, senior, so I had to do what they told me to. Photo of the aircrew. It was stressful. Looking at my dad's logbook, they had 6 hours of sleep, and then they were off to fly 10, 14 hours. He did do active mine sweeps. When they saw a submarine, then they would notify the British authorities to take action. And one of their memorable situations was attacking Skagerrak towards the end of the war. It took place in 1944-45. So after the war, he returned to Prague, like all the aircrew, went back to his hometown in Brno. He wanted to continue in his military career, but he was thrown out of the military by the communist regime. He was given lowly paid positions. He finished his education after the war and ended up with a business school. So he ended up working for a company in Uherské Hradiště. There he met my mum.
In 1968 he escaped Czechoslovakia again, together with you and the rest of the family.
Yes, because his life was made intolerable.
How did he manage to escape?
He managed to escape by writing a letter to his very close wartime friend, Teresa Smart, in Tain. He was very close to her during the war. He he couldn't go over to the UK without an invite. So he was asking her for an invite. And she knew straight away. So he went, wrote the letter, sorted out all the documentation. My sister, naturally, she liked to rummage around for information. She was very interested to find what was in that cupboard, what was in that cupboard. And one morning, before school, she found out that we had 2 passports and stamped going to England, London. Oh God. She started to talk about it in school, and my father, when he found out from the headmistress, he had his heart in his stomach. He said, oh, well, you know, children, what like? He had to be very, very careful because the Czech authorities would have just blocked it if they got a whiff that we wanted to escape. He successfully managed to get around that difficulty with the school, not getting reported. So we went through. We went to Tain, naturally, because we were invited there. My dad's friend, wartime friend, she had a ticket without my father's prior knowledge. She had a ticket already bought, train ticket, overnight sleeper, to London for him to go to the Home Office and say, can I have a political exile? You know, can I stay here for political reasons? And father went, and we actually got a political asylum. So we stayed in a caravan. I think the second week in Tain, me and my sister went automatically, we're not a Melbank now, we went to school. I started at the lowest level of schooling, and so we attended school, and my father also was looking for a job, working.
And what did he do after returning to the UK?
We initially stayed in Tain. I don't know what he was doing. I was informed that he worked in the distillery, Glenmorangie. We stayed in the caravan, which was donated by the family of Teresa, her family, because they knew father, as he was part of the family. We stayed there for a year or half a year. Then we moved to Invergordon because the for the caravan was much better. We went on the caravan site, so you had showers, etc. over there, which initially in Tain we didn't. It was very rudimentary. He went and worked for the railway, loading, unloading potatoes, you know, manual labour. The fellow Scots were saying, Jaroslav, why don't you just take unemployment? You get more money. My father said, no, I'm not here to scrounge off the state. I'm here to contribute to society and feed my family. So he did that. But then he saw limited progress for me and my sister within Scotland, career-wise. So we moved down to London. That's me, that's my sister, Renata, and that's my mum, Draža, Drahomira Brázdil, and that's my father. And that was taken outside London Zoo in Regent's Park. He then became a train guard on a platform in Ilford in London. And there he got attacked one night, brutally attacked. And so he left the job because he said, that's not for me. Then he worked for Save and Prosper, which was a financial investment house, which is now J.P. Morgan, the great big American bank. My mum then subsequently worked with him in that company. It was a lovely environment, and they appreciated my father. And because of his Czech schooling, which was based on detail, accuracy, he really found his forte within the financial company, working in the checking section, where they actually looked for mistakes. And he was the chief instigator in finding the mistakes. And the colleagues were very, very pleased with him because he had a way of communicating with people. He had that British sense of humour that he never lost, that dry sense of humour. They all appreciated him immensely. But his problem was that because of his wartime service, he was deaf. He was not hearing the information that he should have perhaps sometimes be hearing. When we were part of the Czech exile colony headed by Father Lang, every time he went to church, he would congregate with his fellow RAF colleagues.
You served as an altar boy?
Yes, I did. Father Lang was not just a priest. He was a diplomat. He was someone who put his heart and soul for his community, and that's why I remember him. He was my first teacher when it comes to learning Czech.
How is your Czech now?
Well, as a French would say, comme ci, comme ça. It's okay. It's okay. I wouldn't say I'm brilliant, because no one is brilliant at anything. That's one thing I learnt within my professional.
What field did you work in?
I worked as a technician. I did my education at work, part-time education at work, and I became eventually a research scientist. I had notable experiences during my time working on several papers that were published. And the first company I worked at that time was Baker, became Aventis. But then I joined GlaxoSmithKline, GSK. Initially I was pushing my father, not pushing him, but kind of saying to him, look, now we've got the restitution in front of us. You've got your final battle. He actually started it off, the ball rolling. This photo of it here when it was taken in 1991, when he was being presented with rehabilitation certificate from the Ministry of Defence in Prague. Unfortunately, he died in 1997, so I retook the reins, supported by my mum. It turned out that we had to go through the courts to get all the property back. And it was a Herculean effort. And that's where my Czech abilities actually improved, as well as travelling over there quite frequently. Sometimes travelled 10 times a year. And this had an impact on my career within GSK. So I resigned from GSK and then became a technician in London South Bank University, where I could devote more of my time, because the work there wasn't as intensive. It was more, gave me more time to devote for the family issues, and also looking after my mum when she became ill. Because I said, you know, when would you like to finish your last days? In London, in a house that you never built, or your family house, in your own original bedroom? And she said, in my own original bedroom in a family. I was pleased with the Czech property that I finally finished bringing the house back, which my grandfather started. So it took 3 generations and I finished it. My father had a lot of influence on me by looking at his determination, his stoutness. Whenever we were, you know, without money, he said, money will come around, don't worry. And it did. You know, he won the pools coupon and he had money. So he was never downhearted. That was his wartime. He always had a positive outlook, always positive. Even when he was in his final year of his terminal cancer, he was full of optimism. His greatest regret was that he was not there when the home that I live in now, he could actually be there himself. That was his biggest regret.